All right, hello and welcome back to the Broadcast Club. This is episode 12. I am Ange Time.
I'm Relena Tricolor.
And I am Nakanashi.
And with today's episode, we will be talking about romance in visual novels. This episode, we brought on a very special guest, Xeviax, the president of SolPress. How are you doing, Xeviax?
I'm doing good. Thanks for inviting me.
All right, so to get things started, do you want to talk a little bit about your history with SolPress and maybe a little bit about visual novels in general?
Oh, definitely. So SolPress was started up in February of 2017, and our original intentions have always been to localize multiple mediums of content from Japan and find a way to combine all the audiences and help the markets really grow. Since then, we've worked on multiple visual novels, including Sakura Sakura, Yatsunoha, Noon in the Apple Tree, and a few others, and we're really seeing the similarities and differences between visual novels, light novels, and manga.
So what would you say the minimum power level is for this company?
Oh man, well over 9,000.
Nice.
Okay.
All right. Well, yes. So, just out of curiosity, what do you remember? What your first visual novel was? Just out of curiosity.
My personal first visual novel was Katawa Shoujo.
Okay. So
Yeah.
a lot of
Nice,
other people.
safe choice.
Okay. So, yeah, we all started. A lot of us started there.
No, I read good shit to
All
start.
right.
Don't you insult me like that, Ange.
Well, yeah. Whatever. Well, let's get right into the topic of romance. So, first of all, the first thing I want to talk about and related to romance is how well is romance done in visual novels, especially compared to other media like movies, anime, video games, etc. What do you guys think?
I'd say in general, not well. Kind of as a whole.
Yeah.
There are certainly some outliers that do have really strong romance. But in general, a lot of them, romance isn't the quote unquote point. So, yeah, it's kind of a rare moment at times when you can find something that has a really solid romance, and it's definitely out there. And none are coming to mind at the moment for me, but,
I mean, I think it has a lot of the same pitfalls of like anime that there's a lot of very heavy otaku culture in there, which is not always a bad thing if that's what you're looking for, but if you're looking for like just a solid pure love story that's well written and not intended to be kind of like wish fulfillment, it's a bit rarer to find.
I personally always think that actually visual novels are one of the better ways to tell romance stories. Unlike with like say TV or anime, you can actually kind of get into the mindset of the character where you can hear their internal thoughts and their them rationalizing their decisions and that kind of material in addition to what they say.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with you on that. Like, because visual novels are one of the better ways to be able to really tell a good and believable romance. We just don't necessarily always do that.
Yeah, I would say that I think that that's a pretty valid point. Aside from the fact that novels do something fairly similar, I think the real defining point of a visual novel is that you get that novel style internal monologue, you get the characterization, all that depth, but with the combination of usage choices, a branching routing system, and a lot of VNs do this fairly well when they focus on romance in particular, but it's so easy to fall into that trap where it's just, okay, each route, pick a heroine, it's a different trope that, an otaku's gonna like, and then we're gonna, start best girl wars over this.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's the best part, though, right?
I mean, it can be
Yeah,
fun,
of
and
course,
there's plenty of fun VNs that do this. But I think in terms of like pure love stories, it's a bit rarer because it's a matter of like of resources, right? If I want to do like a real quality love story and have 5 different girls, that's super hard unless you either do something like a Clannad where you pick a canon heroine and invest, most of the characterization and romance story into one, or you have to have just like across the board, quality investment that requires you to put in like resources and writing talent.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say about having that like one canon heroine where if you have someone who is the actual girl and the rest of them are just kind of like what ifs, you definitely have a much stronger possibility for a real romance going on there. Other than, like you say, like pick your trope or pick your character type, and you guys pick whichever girl you like the most, and off we go to the races.
And like I said, it's not necessarily a bad thing if you know that's what you're getting in for.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Well, obviously, because people keep
yeah, right.
Them.
The commercial success should really be the end all be all here.
One point I want to bring up that's kind of related, to kind of, I guess, kind of relate to what Xeviax was saying was, I'd say a big part of it, of the romance quality, kind of relates to the protagonist himself as well, because yeah, like he was saying, you get to see inside your main character's head and his inner monologues and stuff. But the problem is, many protagonists are like blandy McNice guy, Joe guy, and like it seems like it seems like the type of VNs being localized these days, they're getting a little better with that. But like, if you just get like pull random moe gay out of nowhere, like most of them are just gonna be like, who's this random high schooler guy that is either an idiot or he's nice, or that's like his main defining personality. But then like there are other visual novels that have like a more defined and stick out personality, like say Yuji from Grisaya, who, I mean, he's kind of a dick sometimes, but he at least sticks out comparatively to other like nice guy bland protagonists. And I'm not saying nice guy protags are necessarily bad. Like there are some ones that I kind of like more than others, but yeah, for many of them are just kind of they're just pretty whatever characters. And I think having both sides of the romance to compare, actually be good characters, can actually help the romance be better, besides like the heroine or the, I guess, romantic interest character have all the character and development and stuff, and the main character just kind of like helping them out, and that's it.
And that makes sense though. Like with the generic VN protagonist, it makes it so that the routes in the game is about the heroines and not about the relationship, which is, I think, a key key difference between the wish fulfillment stuff and the actual love story stuff.
That's definitely a solid point. I mean, the stories usually do revolve around the heroines rather than the relationships, and I think that's something that scenario writers are beginning to pick up on. I think that everyone's really striving to work the art of the relationship rather than the art of the character. I've talked to a lot of scenario writers now, and they've all said that their goal is the relationship, and like that's kind of like a difficult thing to really perfect when all you've been doing is catering to trying to make these idealistic heroines. It's gotten to the point where it's almost difficult to write the story that actually makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, we talked about it in one of the episodes about how you have to have like certain boxes like that you need to have for
Tsundere, check.
Whatever. Yeah, you have to have all of these checked to make sure that it's your VN checklist that doesn't actually exist but totally exists, that you need to make sure you have in your title to be successful, which isn't necessarily great. It's good because people like this stuff, but at the same time, you end up not getting enough of the other kinds of development you could, like romance.
Definitely.
I think it's also pretty telling that a lot of visual novel romance stories kind of end like at the confession or shortly after the confession, and not really like pursuing the relationship. Like getting the girl is kind of the conclusion rather than the actual beginning, which in a more extensive story like Clannad, for example, the relationship takes the center stage, and is not just, as soon as they get together, then, you have your little fade to black, you have your sex scenes, and then they lived happily ever after.
But there's no sex scenes.
Yeah, I was giving a generic
no.
example to contrast with Clannad. Thank you. Listen, man, if there's no key sex scenes involved, then it's like everything is good, okay? Like,
it's actually a blessing. It's okay, don't worry. You don't want those.
God. I don't know. I mean, I think there's a lot of aspects to this that, like, when you really think about the way that VNs are structured. It just makes so much sense to have it like this, though. Especially like you look at, for example, one of the key advantages is being able to have multiple routes and visual levels with choices. Then the heroines become the obvious splitting point for how you divide the routes of the game up. You can put bits of story with each heroine, and then have all the heroines there, and they kind of weave together to make this system where you have the heroines and routes and tied together in a very nice logical way to actually like divide the storyline.
All right, so the next thing I want to talk about is so do you guys think certain genres or types of visual novels do romance better than others, and do you think any particular visual novels stick out in terms of how well they do their romance?
Can we talk about F?
We can. I don't have anything
I
to
bring
say
this up all the time, but no one else has ever read it. So.
I
know.
I watched the anime.
I've been meaning
Okay.
to. I've been meaning to since you were talking about it. It's like there is some things.
It's
that
a pure
seem,
romance, which is not entirely common. I mean, you have some of these, but I mean, when I say pure romance, I mean like pure romance in terms of love stories, not in terms of like heroine routes. It follows 5 separate couples across 5 routes that have their own distinctive love stories that are going on. And again, it's much less focused on this kind of wish fulfillment. They still use the heroines to split the routes, but it's really the couples that are splitting the routes. And the characters are crossing over between all of them, so you have this kind of like complex interweaving story of these 10 people that they're each told from the perspective of one relationship, and not just like the confession. It's the actual story of the relationship that builds up to this unified whole in the end that I think is quite good if you're looking for something that's really truly like just purified essence of romance. I'm not sure you can get much more than that than F.
Well, so actually, there's something that I've been reading off and on. And it's not in English yet, and I don't know if anyone would ever try to do it in English. Called Koinosu Ichakaraizu, which is literally there are you instead of like even starting the game and then meeting people, you just at the beginning choose one of 3 heroines whose story you're going to follow, and it's basically a long route about the protagonist meeting this girl, getting in a relationship with them, and then that just going for a while. Like you get the confession scene, and it's nice, and then they get into a relationship, and they have all that awkward beginnings of a relationship, and start to get more comfortable with one another, and it's like actually develops through all of this stuff instead of just being like, oh yeah, so they know each other and they kind of like one another, and then they confess, and cool, we're good to go. QH scene, let's get out of here, next heroine. And it's not like that at all. You're like really kind of, they literally do live with one another for a while, and it just really gives you a chance to watch the relationship develop rather than just get into get your quick thrill and get out.
That's not that bad of a way of doing it. Just jumping right into it.
And it's actually been really enjoyable to read, because it was like it is like you jump in and you meet this person, and the girl that I was reading for it is she's like somebody that the protagonist used to know, and she's now coming to cram school certain nights, and she stays over at his house for a little bit before she goes there. And so they kind of, at first she's like really super shy about it, and about seeing him again because they knew each other when they were younger, and she's kind of like, she has this idealized idea of him or whatnot, and slowly she starts coming out of her shell, and it was just really fun to watch as it was all happening, even though it wasn't like anything grand and spectacular. It was just like just 2 people gradually falling in love, and then what comes after that. And I don't know how long the route goes. I'm still in the middle of it because I don't like, it's not like a main read or anything. It's something on the side that I read and I'm like, this is nice. But yeah.
And I think the kind of system where you just like pick a heroine makes sense too. It kind of cuts out the middleman there. I mean, like I would put Magikoi in like a romance adjacent genre. It's not like pure romance, but I do like the fact that the way it's structured basically is you click on a girl and you have a scene with her, and after you get enough of those, you enter her route, which kind of makes sense. If you just keep spending time with this girl, you'll end up having kind of seeing the progression of that, which I think is a good way to actually do it.
Yeah, the route selection in Magikoi is kind of like that, like a dating sim sort of approach to selecting a route, rather than the like, hey, let's run through a bunch of days and have some kind of obtuse looking choices
or don't
that
use
may
a command
or may
seal.
not do what you think they are. Yeah. And that's not a bad thing necessarily, to have that kind of approach to it. If like, maybe you want to have that, because that can kind of develop a relationship, having choices instead of literally just click on a heroine to choose her. But at the same time, as long as you develop the relationship after that, you don't need to necessarily have all that front loaded into selecting a heroine or hero if you're reading something that has a female protagonist with male interests.
And I know I shit on this earlier, but Katawa Shoujo, I feel like actually does a respectable job of carrying out a relationship past just a confession, where you kind of have some troubles, some ups and downs, some actual choices that can affect the outcome of things, which I think is better than certain other types of VNs do.
Kind of related to the Magikoi thing, I was actually just reading. I just finished reading Fururaba, that Nekonian, their first VN. They kind of did a similar dating sim thing like Magikoi, where once you get to a certain point in the con route's not particularly long, you get to a point where like every day you choose it's kind of like Magikoi, you just choose between one of the 4 heroines, and then when you do them, you basically have like this interesting kind of small talk session with them in school, and like you can choose between various topics like romance or like just random little things like, what kind of food do you like, and it's different based on the heroine, and like you get to different stages of affection with the heroine. Like you'll know when you ranked up once you get a special scene with them, instead of just like a random slice of life scene in school after you have the small talk with them. So I think that was an interesting way to do that. So kind of similar.
I personally kind of like the games that draw out the building of the relationship. I know that If My Heart Had Wings, actually, it was a pretty long, I guess you would say common route, right? But I liked it. I enjoyed that. I liked the build-up. I think that it really kind of, like, you're essentially building the relationship with the character, and you're actually seeing like the little intricacies that go into a relationship that both characters kind of share. I think that if you were to jump right into after everything's been done, you kind of lose a little bit of that. You kind of lose a little bit of that information that adds the touch to the relationship.
Yeah, and going back to Koicha that I was talking about a sec ago, that was the thing. Like, even though it had this like press start and you have 3 buttons to press for corresponding to each heroine, like it was hours before the relationship actually happened. Like it's just kind of them getting comfortable with one another, and it really stretches out and really just kind of makes you as a reader more attached to this pairing than just like, oh yeah, I'm loading this up to
I can agree that I really like If My Heart Had Wings in terms of like how they paced out the romantic development. Like obviously I'm not gonna like spoil anything, but I mean, as like all the advertisements show, like Kotori is like pretty obviously the main heroine, but like they develop that relationship between her and Aoi, the main character, like right from the beginning, when they meet on the hill, and then like all throughout the common route, like even though it's not even her route, like she gets pretty decent development in there, and then it kind of carries a little bit over into her route too. So that was pretty nice to see.
Oh yeah, definitely.
This is kind of why I think the idea of having a canon heroine or a specific love story rather than 5 different ones is generally tends to be better.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to share the spotlight.
Oh yeah, I mean, Especially, exactly. Like, this is the thing: is are you really gonna have like 5 heroines of equivalent quality that all of them happen to just be perfect soulmates for the main character who somehow meshes with all of them perfectly? It's very hard, right? Like,
Yes.
what a shocking coincidence!
Obviously,
Everyone
that
is
happens.
soulmates with this guy. Weird, isn't it?
Yeah. No, I mean, I have 5 soulmates out there waiting for me. You don't?
I mean, that's how I sleep at night. I just tell myself that.
One other point I wanted to bring up is like we pretty much have mostly been talking about VNs that like pretty much mostly focus on romance, but like surprisingly there are some VNs that do focus on the story mostly, but then just also happen to have
Yeah.
good romance on the side. Like for example, Steins Gate, one of the most well liked visual novels ever.
Fate, DCRI.
You know,
Like there's a ton.
DCRI.
This so I have in my notes some categories I put into the romance thing, which is you've got romance, which is like the pure romance like F, romance adjacent, which is like comedy or whatever themed but has romance in it. Disguised love story, which I want to talk a little bit more later, but then romance as a route driver, which I feel like qualifies a huge number of VNs fall into this one. Of
Oh, yeah.
They have the heroine as
Oh,
part of
yeah.
the storyline, and there are good examples of this. Like I think Steins Gate does this fairly well, even if I'm not the biggest fan of the side routes, if only because basically the main character's interest in the other heroines explicitly leads into the other routes because he makes choices that favor those heroines rather than following the overall plot line that focuses on the main girl.
Yeah, when I referred to Steins Gate, I was kind of thinking more along the lines of, you know, the main character and the obvious main love interest that was pretty teased in the beginning, kind of similar.
I mean, what I was getting at was that it makes sense. That in this one of those cases where it's not just I picked this heroine so I got this route. It's I got this route because I was interested in this heroine and it drove me off the course that was supposed to happen, and it caused other events, which I think is a good thing compared to other VNs where you pick the heroine and then just kind of get the route and different things happen because you picked the heroine, like a Grisaya or Magikoi, for example.
Oh, God.
Oh yeah, like Grisaya is super inconsistent depending on which heroine you pick. Like random shit happens in the background that depends on which heroine it was, and not like any other external inputs, which is kind of I don't know weird to me.
Oh, shit. Oh.
Yeah, right there, Knack.
Yeah, no, I'm trying. So you said that, and I remember there is something I brought up in another cast where I was like, man, the plot changed because I chose this heroine. I was like, what was it? I'm trying to... Oh,
like, for
shit.
sure Grisaya does it, but I'm not sure which other one you have in mind.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it was Yumina. Yumina the Ethereal did something sort of like that. And granted, the romance was not super great in that all the time. Well, in one of the routes, it was pretty good, I thought. But one of the other ones, it was like tacked on at the end. But anyway, I don't want to go too much into that. But like, because you showed interest in this heroine, some things developed differently plot wise. Like there was a certain event that happened because you started to get interested in this heroine, and that kind of put her in a different state. So she did something that she doesn't do in the other routes, making the completely different events. Now, granted, the stuff that kind of fell out of that is, I'm actually not going to go into spoilers on that, but the rest of the thing, like the routes were not necessarily consistent with one another, but
I mean, internal consistency is hard,
getting
man.
into the route, no joke. Getting into the routes felt a little more genuine, I guess, than something where it's like, yes, you've chosen this heroine, so for no apparent reason, we are now going to go deal with these situations that, as far as we can tell, should have happened no matter who you chose. Which is a problem that you see with some of that consistency, but that's a whole different topic. Yeah.
Something else I think is worth mentioning in terms of like genres of VNs is that I don't think you have to be a romance VN to tell a good love story, or have have the whole route system. Like, there's a lot of things that I kind of class as like disguised love stories, where you go into them and they happen to have a good romance as part of a larger story. Something like Sayana Uta, Fata Morgana, to a lesser extent Umineko, where there's very clearly a major focus on a romance and a love story, but the VN is not sold as that, and it just kind of happens to be part of the plot rather than like a driving focus.
Right.
And those, I think, end up tending to be pretty good, because I tend to have this opinion that if you focus on writing a good story, then as long as you don't compromise the good story for romance, you'll end up in a good position. Where I feel like, for example, Chaos Child falls apart on that one, where they just totally sacrifice the integrity of the story to add heroine routes.
It's kind of what I can think of some other examples of that. I don't know how much of a spoiler mentioning Jisenjo no Mao would be for
Jesus fucking Christ
for that point, but
so there are a few things that make me as angry as thinking about Jisenjo no Mao. Listen, man, it's not that I hated that visual novel the whole way through, right? I
didn't either. I actually enjoyed it quite a bit when I was reading it. I wouldn't
be so angry if I hadn't liked it at first, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I think it's a constant risk of being afraid of sales, right? Like, if do I tell like a story there's a consistent vision that's not going to sell, or do I attempt to make something that will be a slightly more commercial success? Like, I can't for the life of me think of any other reason that Jisenjo no Mao could have turned out the way it did, aside from the fact that people were like, you know what, we should put some heroine routes in here to make some money.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's when you look at the structure of it, you know that it was like, yeah, we need to have more than just the canon heroine. We gotta have some options here.
It's my biggest pain point with Chaos Child too.
Let's get one going here, and just tell the writers for that not to even look at the rest of the story. And
there was an interview that was linked to me. It's in Japanese, but I've read bits and pieces of it. That the key part that I read for Chaos Child was that basically there was a producer who believed that there should be more heroine routes, and so they kind of shoehorned more heroines and routes into the VN, and it really, like, Chaos Child common route is like 9 out of 10. Chaos Child true route is like 11 out of 10. Chaos Child heroine routes, 3 out of 4 of them are like 6 out of 10. It's like, oof.
Nice.
Like, guys, come on.
Nice.
I think it definitely is difficult to find that balance, though.
Oh, for sure.
Because, the developer has to find a way to make money.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they're usually really passionate about their story. So it's, how do you balance that? How do you find the perfect amount where you make money, but you try to make a really good story with it? But then, you always get that the producer that comes in and says, hey, let's get some more money in here. Let's add
There's a heroine in Chaos Child who doesn't talk. She grunts the entire VN. You can tell she was tacked on. I wish I were joking. But no, I mean, I guess you've got a bit of a different perspective, too, being a little bit more on the industry side. I mean, it makes sense. It's easy to sit here as a consumer and just kind of shit on companies for doing a poor job of stuff, but I mean, you gotta stay afloat, otherwise you can't make anything, right? So,
well, I definitely think that there's alternative methods of making money from a good story. Like, I mean, if you look at Hollywood, most of their stories don't have romance in it. They have giant fighting robots, and
doesn't quite work
that
as
kind
well
of
in
stuff.
slideshows.
Oh yeah, it definitely does not work as well in visual novels.
Hey, I mean, giant fighting robots has been successful in
True.
VNs.
That's true. Very successful.
Yes, actually.
In one particular case, or
A couple. I mean, there's several.
Over $1 million
Love, you got your. If you guys ever wanted to see Nikola Tesla piloting a giant robot, do I have a VN for you?
Yeah, I do, but I don't there. Anyway.
I think it's definitely something unique to visual novels, though, that there has to be a heroine. There has to be some form of love interest in order to appeal to a larger audience. There are games without that, but they're very, very few, and it's hard to find them. Almost.
The trick is to just go the zero escape route and just like never develop the romance at all.
You just tack them on and then abandon them.
Well, no, I believe that I don't. I'm not sure I want to make this comment because I have a feeling that I might get. I might be remembering this wrong, but I believe the Uchikoshi said he made a comment about wanting the main heroine of 999, for example, to just be like a super unlikable twist on a heroine who just like no one would like.
Do you guys feel that one genre does better than others when it comes to the actual romance?
Romance probably does the best.
Romance.
I mean, like I said, so I think the pure romance is telling a specific love story and not choice route focus. Like I sort of hold F as the top of this for me because it's all about, again, 5 different couples, and it focuses on all of them and not the player choices in which girl they get. It's telling, a series of love stories that are connected but stand on their own. I think anything where you have a well-defined protagonist and a well-defined love interest and let them play off of each other rather than allowing for user choice to influence the story so that the user can feel like they're the one dating this girl, you're gonna end up with a better romance unless you're just a terrible writer.
Yeah, I don't think it actually ends up necessarily being like a genre specific thing, as far as where you can tell the best romance, because you can have a good romance in any story, like Rallin has said.
Absolutely.
But it absolutely comes down to what kind of what your priorities are when you're writing. Because, I mean, if you do prioritize romance, ideally your romance is going to end up being pretty good, but you don't know like how the rest of your game is going to work. But if it's something, if you're focused on telling a good story and you're like, but I want to have this romance in there, as long as you don't sacrifice the story to make the romance, you can have something that really is, a very enjoyable experience for a lot of people and also has a good romance attached to it.
Can I briefly interrupt here because I was sourcing myself so I don't look stupid?
Yeah, go for it.
Quote, my intention was to create the world's worst heroine, end quote, Kotaro Uchikoshi speaking about the heroine of 999.
All right.
Yeah,
good stuff.
but no.
That's okay. I was pretty much done with that thought. So yeah.
I mean, again, I think that the key point here is that like you don't have to have a romance focus. Like I think for example, Fata Morgana has an amazing love story. Sayano has an amazing love story, but they're not romance visual novels. If you pointed me to the first 5 minutes in Sayano and said this is a love story, I would have just slapped you. Like there's no fucking way, right? Like
no, I would not have guessed when I started up. I opened it, I was like, oh,
yeah, and
what did I get myself into? It has ended up being
one of my favorite love stories in visual novels.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
I think we've pretty much covered all the genre and types of VNs and like VNs we like basically at this point, right?
Yeah, that's fair. I have a note about Little Busters in this, but if I spend one episode where I don't show Little Busters, it's probably a good thing. So
that's okay. We did that last episode.
Yeah.
We skipped out on talking about Little Busters last episode. We did. And the worst thing was I was gonna bring up Little Busters last episode.
Maybe I should get a little bit here and be like, yo, Little Busters sucks.
And I didn't.
Okay, next, just edit out everything except for the yo, Little Busters sucks. I think we're good.
Okay, yeah, I got it.
Okay.
I'll just sprinkle it in there somewhere. I'll just that'll be it. I'll just put it in somewhere.
I mean, I can add more context if you like, but I feel
really
like it's not really. I feel like I've already beaten this horse so far. It's just a skeleton horse at this point, and I'm still kicking it.
Yeah.
All right, whatever. Let's just continue then. Okay, so we've talked enough about genres and types of VNs. So I want to get to our next topic. What do you guys think are some potentially interesting ideas for romance stories and visual novels that are either rarely done or just haven't been done yet?
Personally, I mean, I kind of think that, as far as VNs go, the idea of having this sort of heroine choice system already is interesting in that it's something that clearly differentiates it from something like a novel or an anime. Mm-hmm. But personally, I think the writing constraints are a bit hard to work with for this, but I would love to see some stuff like Sharan no Kuni, but with more impact, where the heroine route choice is independent of the story. For context, in Sharan no Kuni, you can pick one of several heroines, and as the story progresses, all of the romantic scenes in the storyline are with that heroine, but the actual course of the story is otherwise unchanged. I think that there could be some cool stuff done there, where if you put good effort into writing a good love story, and then put effort into writing a good story, you could potentially marry that and have a heroine choice that is independent of a story choice. Though that would require, I think, an insane amount of writing effort.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised because apparently Shar no Kuni is pretty popular in Japan. So I'm surprised like no other companies kind of try to copy them, but maybe they're afraid that that's maybe Akabe Soft's thing. I don't know.
I don't think it's super great in Shard no Kuni in that the romances are very, very unimpactful, and they mostly exist to shove like an extra sex scene or two. I don't think the romances in Shard no Kuni add a ton as far as like individual love stories go. I think it's an interesting idea though.
Okay.
Interesting idea that maybe someone else could do better.
Yeah, a lot of the heroine, because the heroines are so heavily tied to the story, like, there's only a couple of extra scenes because you basically get all of the romantic development for each heroine, regardless of whether or not you actually enter a relationship with them, which means that it doesn't feel too different to do every single heroine route, aside from, again, 1 or 2 sex scenes and then, like, a little bit of extra stuff, but it's not super impactful. It would be interesting to see, for example, if you had the writing chops and talent and like, resources for it, to do something like, you know, a Steins Gate, which is very clearly plot focused, but allow you to have multiple heroines serving the role of Kurisu, for example.
You know, I think that the darker kind of visual novels have real potential for a romance aspect. There's definitely some issues with it because specifically from like a localization point of view, it's hard to find people that are willing to work on them. Actually,
Really?
yeah, it's really difficult. There's currently, I think that. There's one game that I know that there was only one volunteer for QA that was willing to work with it, and like it's difficult to find people that are willing to either translate it or actually, you know, do the QA on it. And that's something that, you know, when you initially localize it, you don't really think too much about it because it's like, you know, do your job, right?
Right.
But,
yeah.
but then you actually like you start saying like, hey, do you want to work on this? And they're like, no, I don't want to work on that. And you're like,
Yeah.
what?
Oh.
You don't? But like the localization industry is really I want to say a lot more of a hobby for most people. So a lot of people really want to pick and choose what they work on, and a lot of people aren't comfortable with working on that stuff.
That makes sense.
It makes it difficult in multiple aspects to license that kind of stuff. But I think that there's definitely some really good stories out there with a lot of potential that just haven't been you know, made readable to, you know, our market.
And you said they're like dark, like a lot darker than like what we usually get, basically.
Yeah, definitely. Like, Manga Gamer is, you know, bringing over a lot of them, but, you know, along the lines of Euphoria and Maggot Baits and all them, a lot darker kind of stories.
Yeah. Well, I know like there's a lot of I've seen translators talk about what they enjoy and don't enjoy translating, and a lot of them just don't necessarily enjoy translating, you know, the 18 plus content in general. So
no, that's
when it
there's
gets
only
to the
so
point,
many mollusk metaphors.
I mean, and the thing is too, like, there's a lot of writers in Japan that don't feel like writing the 18 plus content either. So shocker, the translators don't like it either.
Yeah, no, it's completely true. Like, that's one of the most. I've had a publisher, or not a publisher, a developer specifically tell me that he didn't want to write 18 plus games or 18 plus scenes, and he only does it because the market wants it.
Absolutely.
And, like, it's kind of a shame because you know that like it could be a perfectly great romance story without that content, but you know, he has to put it in because you know that's what the market demands. And
this is why I go out of my way to buy everything Novak Tackle produces, because please just giving me more stuff like Fata Morgana. Like, just keep writing this stuff. I will keep buying it, and hopefully people will recognize that you can do more than, you know, write sex scenes.
I like sex scenes, but that's me.
You can get the fuck out of here, Nakanashi. But no, again, I don't want to rehash the sex scene discussion. They've got a time and a place, but
Yeah.
I think, again, they're written for the market, so it makes sense that developers would not want to write them, because you have to write them from a perspective of pleasing the reader rather than being like a romantic culmination. So I'm not at all surprised that no one but the consumer likes these.
And it's a pain to translate them.
Oh, I bet.
No, that's the thing.
it's like
gets
fucking
super
moans
repetitive.
and like just how do I
Yeah.
translate like ha ha, like is there a word there? Is he stuttering? Like what the fuck is happening?
I was actually talking to somebody about this a couple days ago about how like no, nobody wants to translate H scenes. Like why not? It's like because you have to like somehow make this sexy for other people. Like people are gonna be to this, so like you have to keep that in mind when you're writing. And something about that is I don't know, maybe demeaning
Easy
to
solution.
some people.
Add more mollusks.
Obviously.
It's almost easier to translate from the voice actress rather than the script
No,
because
it is. No,
you can match that, right? You
this
could like
this is one of the craziest things. Like being somebody who has been reading untranslated a lot in here, but has been reading untranslated. I've noticed that even in the Japanese text, it does not match up with what she is saying
oh yeah, no,
at all. Like
so
there's a
there-
bunch of stuff in there. I was like, where did she say that? I didn't even catch that character in her voice. Like, this is a hobby of mine now when I'm reading H scenes in Japanese. It's like, how true are they to the voice line? Not very most of the time.
like that's the thing. So when a voice actress, when a voice agency gets the script, they give it to the voice actress and she records it, or he records it from the script, but like it doesn't, sometimes there's a lot more involved with making the actual recording than just, reading straight off the script. There's the improv and stuff like that. And it's hard, you can't really go back over the script and rewrite that section. You could, but that would take quite a bit of time.
Yeah, you'd have to send it back to the writer because you can't just change it without their
Exactly,
permission. And
exactly.
it would just be a whole thing and money. And yeah, exactly. There's obvious reasons why that would happen.
Yeah, and there's definitely some time constraints when it comes down to
Absolutely.
it. But like, it totally would be easier to translate it based off of the voices, and it would almost make more sense. That might be something we look into.
Taking notes.
The future of SolPress.
Frantically
The
notes.
future of SolPress.
Yeah,
You heard it here
instead you're
first,
going to do
folks.
transcriptions of H scenes instead of translations.
Exactly.
Well, translations of transcriptions instead of straight translations. It's the future, man. It's the future.
We'll make it a toggle button.
Listen, I'm really glad that you could come here and be on this show so you could figure out the direction to take your company in. Like, I'm just glad we can help,
It's going to take it to the next level. It's going to be perfect.
You guys will guide us. Along with 4chan and Reddit. We'll listen to everyone.
The best consultants out there.
Exactly.
Anyway, moving along from sex scenes, one thing that I think actually is an interesting... Fuck you, Nick. And one thing is an interesting love story or romance aspect you can tell in visual novels, and it's hard to really get too into this without getting into spoilers for specific VNs, though they are out there, is meta-narrative romance. I think meta-narrative is something interesting across games in general because of the choice system, because of save files. You can really take advantage of doing things like locks that are system-wide rather than locks being based on your progress in a save file, so that even if you reset a save, your progress is it's not changed, right? So
Yeah.
I think there's some interesting things here, and there's a couple of VMs that do this that can really get into this idea of really, really digging into everything that the medium has to offer, and that means that if I go back and reload a previous choice, I have new knowledge of what happened down that route. So why shouldn't the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. No, that's kind of a topic actually I wanted to talk about, but I don't want to talk about because if I bring up
If
any
you list
title,
a VN
it's
that does
spoilers.
this,
Exactly.
it's going to spoil everyone. That's
Yeah.
the problem. I know VNs that do this, and I can't talk about them because it's a bad idea. I want people to experience that without having the preconceptions.
Yeah.
But for sure it's out there. When I wrote a shitty, short-ish text adventure that was kind of very similar to this idea and was based on this, only to discover, of course, that Uchikoshi had already done it, 10 years before me and much better than I did. But I think it's a very interesting idea that, like, one of these cool things that happens in games is that you don't have to be limited by the knowledge that the character has, right? By reloading previous saves, by making different choices, you have access to this extra set of information that normally a character would not be privy to. And so I think it's very interesting to build stories based around this idea.
Yeah. I have seen, there's a couple times you can sometimes catch what games will do that. What VNs rather, because I've seen a couple where you finish a route and it asks you if you want to save, like create a save file to create from another, like a new game plus sort of thing, like some video games will do, instead of just like ticking an internal box, which I think is the superior option if you're doing it for a VN, is to tick an internal box, because then you can like drop it on somebody later, like, hey, by the way,
don't let the player choose whether to save their metadata, like force it on them, right?
Now that we
pull a fucking Undertale, you know.
Now that we finished all of the routes. Now you finish that route 4, we're going to tell you, hey, by the way, we just unlocked another route. What? Yeah.
Basically, it turns out that Uchikoshi has super cool ideas about how VNs should work, and everyone should go read some of his stuff.
It's too bad that I don't like the way he executes them.
That's a shame. Yeah, because
as
it turns out, I've basically been a huge fan of everything he's written. So it's been. Also, it turns out that he has stolen all of my ideas, but like before me, which is really. I don't know where he got the time machine that he found my ideas and stole them and then went back in time.
You actually inadvertently stole his ideas.
No, I don't think that's the case.
Sure.
But
sure.
no, I think if people like meta narrative stuff and want to see like what you can do with VNs that really are based on the real full extent of what is possible with this kind of system, including some love story aspects, Uchikoshi is pretty good for this.
All right, I believe that's everything we have to talk about in terms of romance and visual novels. So let's get right into the news section. And
maybe not everything, but everything we'll talk about.
What?
Never mind, just keep going.
Okay.
And you should know better than to take anything Max says seriously.
Sure.
Wow, come on. Seriously?
Okay.
I say plenty of serious things.
Like that right there. You can't believe him.
Okay.
I don't even believe it.
Dang. Okay, anyways. Since we have Xeviax from SolPress on here, I wanted to first thing I want to talk about was SolPress is having a good year. They finally released Newton and the Apple Tree. I personally kickstarted it and I've started reading it and I enjoy it so far, but I'm still a little in the con route. They also recently announced a Dare Sora, which is going to be an episodic visual novel series. The first volume is going to be released in a few weeks after the Japanese version does. It's going to be all ages, and then sometime after that, volume 2 will be 18 plus. So Xeviax, do you have anything in particular to say about either of those things or SolPress in general?
Oh, definitely. I mean, Dare Sora is an absolutely amazing story. I've I've heard a lot about the first volume and I've read a little bit of it. The story is absolutely mind-boggling. Everyone who I've heard talk about it has said that it has so much potential and it looks like it's going to be, an absolutely great series. It's actually really, really. I know we talked about dark stuff earlier. It's dark. It's dark. It's definitely dark. And that makes it amazing. It's from the same scenario writer and most of the same people that wrote Chronobox. So it's definitely something to be looking forward to.
You have got my attention.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's the first volumes can be $2.99. I would consider that fairly cheap. It's going to be available on Steam.
Can you do $1.99?
Yeah, I think I'm going to wait for the 50% off sale.
gotta wait for that. Well, you know what? We are releasing it with a what do you call that? A release sale. So
nice.
If you want 30 cents off.
Shit. Looking at this on Steam, listen, dog, off the record here, if you want to throw me a review copy of that, I will read it and put a copy of my review on the blog, because this looks interesting, actually.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it really is a really really good looking game, and I know Pellet did some artwork for it, uh, just as a, celebratory image, and like I saw it, and I'm like, can you not make this character look so damn appealing? Like
Oh, nice.
once you read it, you'll know why I say that.
Well,
But like it's so good. It really is. It's good. Um, and Pellet's a fantastic artist. I've managed to meet him in real life, and when I was over in Japan, and his artwork is amazing. He also did Newton and the Apple Tree. He did several heroines in that game. I know, right? It ticks every box.
listen, I like
Newton and
urban
the Apple-
fantasy, Knack. Listen, okay, so people can't see this context because I admitted to the fact that I like school visual novels. I like urban fantasy where a character in a mundane setting is thrust into a different world, and so school
It's
fits
fair.
into that
It's
very
fair.
well
It's fair.
when magic is also
When-
tagged.
In conjunction with your other boxes.
And the,
Carry on.
and the picture we're referring to looks like it's Luna, right?
Yes, yes. So the picture is Luna. She is
We'll link this picture somewhere.
she's great.
Somewhere. I'll put it on the website. This will be the, you know what? I'll forego the usual episode title
Nice.
this time and put this up instead.
Yeah, they're like, excuse me, what? Don't worry, guys. It's fine. You'll appreciate this. Continue.
She is absolutely like she's definitely a character. I don't know if you've seen the our promotional video that we made, but like you should be able to tell right off the bat. You should be like, oh my gosh, this lady is scary.
I mean, that's kind of what I got from this. So
Yeah, definitely. I mean, she looks sadistic as all hell, you know.
right
It's
up
almost
my
like,
alley.
I have no complaints about that.
Please don't bully me, Luna-sama.
No, please bully me.
So,
what?
What am I
Excuse me. I'm
supposed to
sorry. I
do?
got lost a moment there.
So we also have Newton and the Apple Tree out. That's it's a great story. And we've had a lot of good reviews on it. A lot of people tend to like it, which is really nice. It definitely Bongo is watching every single review, and he's very very thankful that everyone seems to think that he did a great job with the localization.
Cool.
Coming up, we have a panel, hopefully, at a future convention in October. We'll be tweeting out more about that. We'll have a lot of announcements at that panel. We're looking at more than 10 announcements right now. And those are all from titles that are coming out probably within the next before year's end and maybe Q1 of 2018. So it's definitely something to look out. 2019, my bad. Yeah. Q1 of 2019. It's definitely something to be looking forward to.
Well, you heard it here, folks. Exclusive news on the Broadcast Club from SolPress president himself. So be sure to look out for potential future conventions. Xeviax, do you have anything more to say about SolPress before we get to the next topic?
I hope you look forward to our projects.
Cool. All right. So more big VN news, probably one of the biggest ones in the VN community right now. So Neko Neon, they kind of teased this for a while, but they announced Hello Lady by Akatsuki Works, along with a Hikari Field partnership, and the big one, they announced Ao Kana, Ao no Kanata no 4 Rhythm, which is one of those quote-unquote kamiges that people have been in the Japanese reading community have been like really hyping up. So a lot of people in the BN community are definitely looking forward to that.
Mm-hmm. Especially because, it had like 2 failed fan translations. Because one lost the files and
There's
the other
something
one,
like that.
like the translator just like, nope, I can't do this justice or whatever, and walked away from it. So like people have been being strung along about Aokana for a long time now. So yeah, people were really excited to hear about that, and rightfully so, I think, because everything I've heard about people who have read Alcana is pretty positive. There's an outlier in there who didn't really care for it, but
There's always that guy.
You'll have somebody like that.
In terms of releases that have come out, Shining Song Star Nova, after all that controversy we were talking about in the previous episode, finally released. I don't know much about the reception of it, but I think people liked it.
I think people generally liked it. I remember the first feedback I saw about it was a particularly vitriolic review of it. But that seems to have been the outlier, since I think that particular person was going in expecting something other than what they got.
Okay.
But honestly, I haven't read that many responses about it. I was kind of interested in it because it seemed like the production values were a little higher than expected. Like, they had Elements Garden on to do some of the music for it. And if you don't know who Elements Garden is, you should know who Elements Garden is as far as music is concerned in Japanese productions. Like, they are a part of a lot of stuff and they do really good work. So, that when I learned about that, I was like, wow, okay, I'm actually more interested in this now. And granted, I still haven't checked it out myself, other than the demo I read like a year ago or however long it's been. But yeah, it's thing, and it's out now and it's good. And did it actually come out on Steam, or did it launch on an alternative platform?
That's
because I know that was what we were talking about before, was the potential Steam block, because they have their new policies in place, and I don't want to get into that again. But did it actually come out on Steam, or is it like on was it like independently published, or on like GOG or something?
It doesn't seem to be on Steam. I don't see like a price, like a price tag and thing. There's the demo's there, but I don't. So maybe it was through another.
Yeah.
Place, but I don't. Yeah, look, might have just been GOG or something.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely on GOG. That's for sure. So it's probably just go on there.
Okay.
But as far as more releases, the Nekopara Extra visual novel and OVA came out. They're both on Steam. It's a prequel to the Nekopara series. I haven't checked out either of them out, but I might. Sometime in the future.
Anime was the mistake.
What was the mistake?
You heard me. Anime was the mistake.
I'm still waiting for the inevitable Nekopara alternative, when it just goes off the deep end.
Yeah, we'll see. The second Flowers finally came out after just sometimes likes to take their time with visual novel releases, but I think. I have a few Flowers fans, and I think they like it, so that's a good thing. A fairly big release by Front Wing, Island, just recently got released. So that, I believe, we said this in a previous cast, but it has the same writer as Himawari, and apparently is in the same setting, but like in the past or something.
I don't remember exactly how they're connected. I know they're like connected by some third other story, and they actually are all tied together somehow, but like it's not an overt enough connection to like, they are connected, but not in a way that it's more of like an Easter egg connection than a proper, like, these are deeply interweaved and sort of thing like that. But what I've heard about it, as it's been out for a while before the English release, is that a lot of times there's some people who if you like Himawari, you'll probably like Island, but not necessarily, and vice versa on that. But that's a really exciting release, especially because, that's got an anime going on right now, which apparently is really bad, like the adaptations are. But yeah, that's really exciting that's out now. I'm kind of pumped for that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like you're saying, I don't think you really need to read one before reading the other.
Oh yeah,
So
absolutely not. Absolutely not. Yeah, they're very independent stories. It's kind of, it's like, hey, if you like this author, like, like in anything, like, oh yeah, I like reading Stephen King or something, I'll pick up his new book or something. It's like that. It's like, oh, I like reading this author, so I'll pick up their next story. Sort of situation, and
okay,
you'll be happy with it.
all right, cool, good to know. Witch Hunt, not too surprising, but Witch Hunt got permission to translate the new When They Cry series from Ryu Kishi himself. So I mean,
Fuck
we
yeah.
we expected it, but it's cool because we get permission for Umaneko, but it's cool to get the confirmation early.
I like that I speculated that when we recorded for the last episode, and between recording and release of our episode, it was confirmed.
Yeah. Well, no.
Yeah,
We got Nakanishi the Prophet over here.
it was gonna happen. Come on.
Yeah, it was gonna happen though. Yeah. Pretty interesting news. So, this visual novel called Your Diary was apparently a pretty requested release by by some of the VN community, and it got released on Steam. But apparently, the translation is pretty not so good. When they released it, they said they planned an update to fix the translation, but who knows when that's going to happen. But it's unfortunate that it kind of just released that, but people don't like the translation. It's pretty unfortunate since apparently people wanted to read it. Let's see. We have some more announcements. Some Manga Gamer at whatever the previous convention was announced Expression Relato, is that how you say it? Farther Than the Blue Sky, Beat Angel Escalier R, and FXXX, but it means fuck me. Boop, meet Royally, Horny Magical Princess, which appears to be another 18 plus.
I don't know. I mean, fuck me royally, horny magical princess. That sounds pretty wholesome.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, we'll see about that.
It's really a family story.
It is.
More than anything.
Obviously.
Pretty big news that got quite a lot of attention when it was first announced. But Sekai Project laid off the majority, or actually, I think they just straight up, if I'm not mistaken, straight up closed their physical office.
They closed the physical office, so anyone who was there got laid off.
Yeah. But, people were freaking out that, all their projects going out. But then, a day or two after, they released an official statement and said, oh, no, that was just our office. We're still going to projects still going along. Mm-hmm. And they even, posted a bunch of their translation status and progress for, a bunch of their projects. So they're obviously just going to go the full remote contract route. So
that was an interesting day because I was actually around. I was not doing anything that day. So it just, that popped up. And I saw the news 10 minutes after it happened. I was like, what? And so I was following it for hours, trying to figure out what was going on because I knew we would probably end up talking about it. And that overall, that seems to be what it was. I haven't honestly looked at it since that day. But it looks like, they were trying to trim costs, and what's expensive? Office space in California.
That is true.
So business wise, it makes sense for them to do that. For the people involved, damn, that sucks. Wow. I felt really bad reading about it and having that kind of dichotomy of emotions about it. I'm I totally understand why you might do this, but holy shit, people just lost jobs. And people that I'm not that aren't total strangers to me. I'm aware of them. I'm not oh, this is some random person who I have no idea who they are. People who are I at least follow on Twitter, maybe have talked to on Discord once or twice, kind of thing. But yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean,
it is what it is.
Yeah. I mean, as long as they continue their projects, I guess that's a good thing.
And that's what they've assured.
Yeah.
They've assured that like they will continue their projects, and as far as we know, that's what's going to happen. So there's nothing that is signifying that I've seen that they won't be doing that. So it's a thing that happened. Business is continuing. So there you
go. Another announcement. Moe Novel announced "If My Heart Had Wings" Flight Diary, which it's a fan disc of the original, where I guess they're gonna have like the usual sequel routes to the heroines and a couple of new routes for heroines that didn't have in particular. I mean, at this point, we expect anything from Moe Novel to just be all ages. Like,
so before you even continue that, has the fan retranslation already started?
No. I could, but I'd love to be part of it, but nope. Like, on Fuo Novel, the original retranslator already said he's not interested. He's just done with that series. I mean, which is really, I completely understand. That project took forever, so we'll see what happens here. I mean, and they're apparently in Moe Novel's last few releases, like Sky Full of Stars and whatever that other game was, they didn't butcher any
did they do
routes.
Was that like Love Kami? Was that the name of the one they did?
I think so. That sounds right, yeah. But I don't know anything much about it. But I heard they didn't, butcher like any text or translations like they did with the original. But who knows? There's no info yet, so we'll see what they do with that. As far as fan translations go, we've talked about this VN before. I know Cornetto Man really likes it. There's this moege called Clover Days. It was at 100% translated for quite a while, and people keep wondering what's up with it. But I guess there was a blog post by the main translator of the project that said, the reason why it's been delayed is because the hacker and the TLCs went missing, and then something that he didn't specify in specifics said that releasing would cause a potential DMCA. So he says it's kind of in a bad place right now, but he's still hopeful that it can get out eventually. But we'll see. Nye, who was on the guest of our first episode podcast, he's making a EVN called When the Shutter Stops, and he tells us the Kickstarter for that is going to be starting this September 22nd. So if you want to support his VN, it looks like a mystery detective kind of VN. He says he's pulled he's got inspired from stuff like Steins Gate, and I think either the Zero Escape or Infinity series or something. But I'm sure if you're interested in those kind of VNs, be sure to check out the Kickstarter page with the gold stuff and help out if you can.
He's put a lot of care and thought into his visual novel, and it's been in progress for a while, and there was some setbacks that I won't get into here in its production, but it's really a lot of care and love has gone into the project he's working on, and I at least I was super excited about it when we had him on in our very first episode.
Same.
And I'm still super excited about it now, and his Kickstarter goes live on the 22nd of September, and I'm ready with my credit card pretty much to toss some funding his way.
Cool, yeah. All right, so that's about it for news, and now we're going to get into the Shill visual novel section, where we're going to have level_0 talk about Kindred Spirits on the Roof. So here it is.
Hello, I am Level 0. Today I am here to shill to you, humble listeners, the fine Yuri visual novel, Kindred Spirits on the Roof by Liarsoft. It is available on Manga Gamer and on Steam, completely uncensored, because there's nothing gratuitous to censor. I personally see this visual novel as the perfect gateway to the Yuri genre. It tackles the common themes of romance and personal growth often seen in Yuri, but doesn't do it in the same ways that others I've read before have done. It is a very relaxing read, very comfortable to tackle, coming in at around 30 hours or so, maybe less. I may have spent some of that time just listening to the soundtrack. The main plot involves the protagonist, Yuna, trying to help two spirits who are trapped at her high school discover a unique way to ascend to the afterlife. This entails fostering relationships between other girls at the school, and soon you are introduced to a host of characters that are each likable and have their own sets of personal issues and failings to deal with. As they form couples, you can see how they each suit each other, play to each other's strengths and weaknesses, and are able to help each other cope with their own issues. Kindred Spirit's selection system is rather unique, in that you can choose which scenes you want from a selection of those ahead. These are divided into main plot and couples. Once you open those up, you can go back and see special scenes called extras, which are either continuations or are from the other participant's point of view. I found this to be a refreshing and enjoyable way to progress through the story as opposed to the straight linear route, even though it doesn't really affect progression. The writing and the art really shine, as I think many will love the character design and expressions of the girls, and all of the personal and relationship issues dealt with in the story are done with tact and with emotional maturity. I also appreciate the moments of humor, even though I wouldn't really call it a comedy. The soundtrack is great as well. It is included as a bonus in the last drama CD, which I also recommend if you enjoy the VN. There are 4 of the drama CDs. They add a little extra storyline if you didn't quite get enough. And really, how can there be enough Yuri?
All right. Thank you, Level Zero, for shilling Kindred Spirits on the Roof. It's a VN that I was kind of interested in reading, so maybe I'll get back to reading it sometime. Anyway, that's about it for this episode. I want to thank Xeviax for joining us. It was really great to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Be sure to watch out for that future convention or whatever he with plans on announcing stuff.
That convention or whatever, you know.
Or whatever.
That thing that's gonna happen.
That's the thing that's gonna happen, supposedly. And be sure
Spoiler
to...
alert, and she's been drinking.
No, that's me.
No, actually, I am pretty sober.
That was the joke, Nash.
Oh.
Everyone but Ange has been...
Yeah. Oh!
Naruhodo.
Naruhodo ne. But also be sure to look out for our next episode where we're going to be talking about reading untranslated visual novels. I'm on the path of learning Japanese myself, so I'm looking forward to
Spoiler
that one.
alert, it's hard.
Shocker.
So I hear.
Shocker. Language learning is not easy.
Nope, not at all.
And we all have a little bit of experience on that, so it should be an interesting thing to talk about.
Yep. Anyways, that's about it for this episode. I have been Ange-time.
I've been Ralana Tricolor.
And I've been Nakanashi.
And see you guys later.